Hello, Gemini, and welcome to your monthly video horoscope for the month of December. A very happy season to you, regardless of how you celebrate the season, and wishing you a very prosperous new year. Before we get down to talking about the month's astrology, something I've been wanting to say for the last couple of months, but just haven't really gotten around to doing, is in addition to listening to these videos for your sun sign, I also highly recommend that you listen for your ascendant or rising sign. If you don't know what your rising sign is, I have a free chart calculator on my site. And if you know your birth time, all you have to do is go to that page. You can find it under the Astrological Services link, and it's absolutely free. You can go to that page and you can enter your birth information, and it will cast your Vedic chart for you, and there will be listed in the text on the page where your rising sign is. It'll say ascendant. And you can come back and you can also listen to your monthly horoscope for your rising sign as well. If you don't know your birth time, please do listen for your sun sign. That's accurate too, but you'll probably find a higher degree of accuracy if you know your rising sign in listening to these videos. Okay, let's talk about the month's astrology. Got an hour? I'm only kidding. I won't try to take up too much of your time because we both know how busy you are and how full your schedule is, how full everybody's schedule is with the holidays being as they are. But do remember to slow down. Do remember to pay attention. There's a lot of activity going on. Well, that's really an understatement. There's always a lot of activity going on for you. Why does that happen? We'll get back to that other point. Why are you always so busy? Because your ruling planet is Mercury, the messenger. It's one of the fastest moving planets. It's the fastest moving planet next to the moon. Mercury moves very quickly. So it will form a lot of aspects over the course of the month. That makes you very social, makes Geminis very social by nature. There's a lot of activity in general in your relationship house this month. And if you want to grow, if you want to change, and you want to evolve, then relationships can function as a mirror. And it's a good thing to take a look at those. It's a good thing to take a look at some of those things that are going on in your relationship house. Also, this month, there's a full moon in your sign. We need to talk about a few points before we talk about the month's astrology. There is a lot going on for you within relationships, a realization, a recognition. I would also say an acceptance. But let's talk about some of the things that are happening and why there is so much changing for you this month. First of all, the Sun and Mercury are never that far apart from each other. So they do tend to conjunct each other quite often, but it's still very powerful when those two planets do so. And they're going to be conjuncting each other later on this month, which means that over the majority of this month, they're going to be traveling in very close proximity to each other. And whenever Mercury is conjuncting the Sun, the things that tend to happen are very insightful. There's a lot of realizations, a lot of things unveiled that were perhaps previously hidden. So let's talk about the astrology at hand this month. I'm going to group this into several different sections of aspects, but we'll talk about the dates that are happening. Around the 4th, Jupiter forms a harmonious angle to Venus. Now, whenever Venus is involved, we know that on one level or another, that's likely going to relate to relationships, right? We know especially this month it's going to relate to relationships because Venus is presently transiting your relationship house. There's been a lot of effort put into a key interaction that you're having, whether that interaction is just with yourself and your self relationship or whether that interaction is with another individual. Something is changing. You're likely having to take a look at a key relationship and the manner in which you approach it and how you express yourself within that relationship. So all on the 4th, you've got Jupiter forming a harmonious angle with Venus. You've got the Sun forming a harmonious angle with Uranus. That aspect says something about a new path forward. But first, because Jupiter's in a section of the sky, a section of Leo that's called Maga, And Venus will be in a section of Sagittarius that's called Mula. It means that energy has been applied in a specific direction without perhaps taking as deep of a look as you might be able to take at a specific situation in your life. And that situation does involve a relationship and how you approach that relationship. Things that you've been confident about that no longer are working within that particular connection. And you're recognizing there need to be some changes, but lo and behold, you've got the Sun, the light bearer, and Uranus, radical and revolutionary. Uranus is in the section of your chart that deals with the future, aspirations, how you want things to head. And this particular connection has probably been in a state of limbo for a while. But what happens when the Sun trines Uranus in this manner, especially because of the areas of the sky that each particular planet is in? The Sun is in a section of Sagittarius that's called Ashadha, and Uranus is in a section of Aries that's called Revati. Revati deals with the ending of one path, and the new path is not yet begun yet. Jyeshta, which is where the Sun is, quite literally translates to mean the eldest. So there's a lot of wisdom that's available through Jyeshta. But that wisdom comes by taking a step back from something, and then poof, a realization just dawns on you. A la Uranus style, out of nowhere. And that begins to give you a sense of where you need to head, how you might need to alter your approach, the way you need to engage with this person. There will likely need to be some engagement between the two of you in order to discuss each of your new philosophies about how this relationship should and could work in regards to each person honoring the other. Now, in addition to this, within a couple of days after these alignments that I've just spoken of, you've also got a full moon in your sign. And that's going to take place in a section of Gemini that's called Mrigashira. And there's a tone of Aquarian energy that's associated with this. What do I mean by Aquarian energy? A recognition of a wider vantage point, a deeper realization. Your scope of vision widens in regard to something. When you're dealing with Mrigashira, you're always taking a look at picking something apart and putting it back together again. And don't pick yourself apart too much. Perhaps just a hint. Don't pick the other person apart too much, but perhaps just a hint, and be willing to let them pick you apart a little bit too. And hey, if you're just picking yourself apart, well, just be a little easy on yourself. If somebody else, be easy on each other. You can find a way forward. That's what this path is suggesting. When we're talking about this Mercury-Uranus trine, I don't know if I mentioned that yet or not, Mercury will be forming a harmonious angle with Uranus. And this is on the 6th, 2 days after the Sun does it. So as I said, they're traveling in close proximity to each other. This deepens that realization, that recognition, that insight. On the 8th, a couple of days after that happens, at the same time that Jupiter stations, let's take a bit of a brief detour here. When a planet stations, either going retrograde, which is apparent backwards motion, doesn't really move backwards, so, or direct, apparent forwards motion, it's always moving forward, so in a sense it's always direct. It's just a matter of orbital things. But we won't talk the astronomy side of things. Back to what I was talking about. When a planet stations, quite literally, in our perspective, or from our perspective, it tends to sit still. That planet becomes very, very powerful. Jupiter relates to wisdom. It relates to expansion. So it relates to growth. A way of understanding yourself, a way of finding a deeper sense of confidence, a deeper sense of trust, both in yourself and another. And this coincides with a conjunction between the Sun and Mercury. Okay, now there may be some challenging feelings associated with this, because whenever you have a planet conjuncting the Sun, it creates a state that's called combustion. So the energies of that planet get disrupted a little bit. And the areas of your chart that they're associated with tend to have a little bit of frustration associated with it. So there may be a little bit of insecurity associated with it, some difficult emotions that you might have to work through, but always remember to take a look, take a step back. Whenever you're dealing with Jyeshta, you're dealing from with a sense of withdrawing from something so that you can have a sense of perspective on it. Okay, this takes place on the 8th, and that itself is only a few days before another harmonious alignment. You have one aspect, one powerful aspect leading into another this month. It's really, really, really powerful, life-changing month for you. On the 12th, your ruler Mercury also forms a harmonious angle with Jupiter, a way of applying yourself to the path forward. But I need to caution you about this. You become perhaps again a little bit too secure within a particular way of interacting, either with your partner, with your boss, or with yourself. You think you know yourself, but hey, on another level, you don't, okay? There's a need to keep your eyes open. While you're working for progress, which by all means you should, keep your eyes open. Sometimes we can get so passionate about creating a change that we don't pay attention. So this alignment is reminding you to continue to pay attention. To the extent that you're willing to change your outlook on something, and to the extent that you're willing to undergo a change where perhaps you have been resisting a change, there is very powerful progress on offer to you this month in various areas of your life, whatever these planets tend to be indicating, whatever areas of your chart. Keep in mind, I'm going to give you another little bit of a detour. I know this is a long video, but hey, this is all really important stuff, okay? Keep in mind that when you're dealing with astrology and when you're dealing with these video horoscopes that I'm doing, I'm just talking about the planets as they're transiting your chart in relevance to either your ascendant or your sun sign. But there are so many other different planets that are involved that help to color what's going on. But we have such a very powerful aspect that's happening mid-month, and it's been happening off and on since 2011. So think about how your life has been changing since 2011. There will likely be some tension this month, I'm going to warn you. And then later on in March, later on in the new year, or I should say early on in the new year, there will be another alignment between these two planets. And what are these two planets? It's Uranus and Pluto. They've been forming a tense angle known as a square off and on since about 2011. And guess what? Their angle becomes exact again this month. Where in your life have you been resisting a change? Where perhaps, even though it's difficult for you to take a look at the things that are associated or what would be necessary in order to create this change, if you perhaps took the steps of doing so, you might actually find that you had a big breakthrough. So Uranus, as we mentioned before, is in a section of Aries that's called Revati. And Pluto is in a section of Capricorn that's called Purva Ashadha. Whenever Purva Ashadha is involved, there's a certain degree of peeling away at layers of the ego. And sometimes when Pluto's involved in this process, it can be a little bit difficult because Pluto's just going to put things in your face. That's how he works. He's a very in-your-face type of planet, like it or not. But you might as well like it because he's going to do it anyway. So you might as well go along with the changes that are there. Peeling away at layers of the ego. At first, it can be a little bit humiliating, but there's a deeper realization that's there. It helps you to understand that if you're just real with yourself and real with another person in terms of how you would like for things to head, there can be a tremendous amount of progress on offer to you. Shortly on the heels of this Pluto-Uranus square, we've also got Venus forming a tense angle with Uranus and conjuncting Pluto. So Venus, in a sense, is going to be doing so at the time that they're exact because Uranus and Pluto don't move very quickly. So this, of course, will be also associated with the relationship. Empowering this even further is the fact that Purva Ashadha, which is where Pluto is, within Capricorn, Purva Ashadha is ruled by Venus. So Venus is very powerful when it's in Purva Ashadha. It becomes empowered. It gets an extra boost. And in its connection with Pluto, that will definitely be the case, right? You've been wondering when things are going to shift and how you can ever find this progress. This month you begin to get a hint. Coinciding with that very same aspect of Venus and Uranus and Venus conjuncting Pluto, you've also got your ruler, Mercury, in a section of Capricorn that's called Mula, forming a harmonious angle with Neptune. Neptune's in a section of the sky, and I've been speaking about this off and on for the last couple of months, called Shatabisha. And wherever Shatabisha is involved, there's a certain degree of something being hidden from view. Drama comes into your life, chaos comes into your life even, and you begin to take a look, because this is happening in your 10th house, which on one level relates to the things that you hold highest in your life. Okay? It also deals with your karma, but something that you've been hiding from yourself. But it's not like you've consciously been doing it. It's more subconsciously that you've been doing it. And you may hit a point of resistance. Remember, I was talking earlier about be careful to avoid that sense of pride. This is a moment where, due to that, you may have a little bit of a healing crisis momentarily in your life. You may find yourself resisting that change, and maybe a little bit of drama that ensues. But sometimes that drama can be good because it brings a revelation. And that's always how Shatabisha works. And in general, that's how Neptune works too. Neptune's very powerful in Shatabisha. So this coincides with this Venus-Uranus square and a Venus conjunction of Pluto. So something deeper is revealed that offers a view into the path ahead. Closing up the month, getting close to the end of your horoscope. Thanks for still sitting in your seat, unless you've gone to make a sandwich already. Hey, I don't blame you. On the 21st, you've got Mars forming a harmonious angle with Uranus. This is a very powerful aspect because Uranus is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, and Mars is in Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, by the new system of rulership. Making this even more powerful, Mars is in its own nakshatra, Dhanishta. So there's a very Martian boost of energy here. And it coincides with something very powerful happening with Uranus. You remember Jupiter was stationing retrograde. Well, now Uranus, which has been retrograde for the last several months, is stationing so that it can move forward. Uranus always overturns things. It shifts the paradigm. And so there's been a lot of internal work the last several months, and now you're getting ready to take that energy and focus it externally on your life and create some radical changes in that area that are more in alignment with who you are, what you believe in, what you know to be right for you. And yes, there can be some changes and shifts in a relationship that aren't quite as comfortable. There can even be a parting of ways within a relationship. But what's getting ready to happen is actually quite positive. So don't avoid it. Work with it, right? Saturn at the end of the month, right after there's a new moon in your relationship house, which offers a new path, a new way forward, but you're going to have to take a look at the things which perhaps you may not want to take a look at, because this new moon will happen in a section of Sagittarius that's called Mula. Mula can be very driven, passionate energy, but it's also energy that's known as Sattvic. Sattvic is balance. So it brings a very driven type energy so that there's an opening up, so that you hit resistance, you hit a brick wall, and you have no choice but to kind of allow things to kind of subside a little bit and take a look. Don't fear this aspect. It's something that's actually really powerful and life-changing, heart-opening. But you have to be willing to take a look inside once your heart opens. And you may not like everything that you see there. Doesn't mean you're a dark, horrible person. I'm not saying that. You may not like everything you see there, but allow it all to be released. Allow everything that's difficult, challenging to move, and make way for something new, which is ultimately more powerful and more positive. On the 23rd, we haven't had a change of signs for Saturn in over 2 years. And now Saturn is getting ready to shift into Sagittarius. This is your, oh no, Saturn's entering my relationship house and that's not going to be good. Well, actually, Saturn is the planet of crystallization. It may bring some, some things that you have to take a look at, some things that you'd much rather resist. But slowly, over the course of the next couple of years, the way that you approach your relationships on every single level is going to alter. And in a way that establishes a greater sense of balance where you are fulfilled and also whoever the other person is that you're dealing with, boss, somebody you work with, partner. Again, relationships are very vast. There's a balance between you and others, how much of yourself you give and how much you allow yourself to receive. Saturn's in Anuradha, and Anuradha is about having a good balance within relationships, about recognizing your potential, your worth, about recognizing the potential and worth of others, and finding a balance between the two. So very powerful month in the course of your relationships and the way in which you approach them. Approach it positively. Keep your heart open. It's the time of the year to keep your heart open. It's the time of the year where the sun reaches its darkest point, but then the new light comes shining in. And guess what? A lot of these very powerful aspects happen right around the solstice. That's pretty powerful, and that's pretty positive. If you'd like to know a little bit more about the month's aspects and how they'll affect you personally, because this is just where the planets are, not in relation to every single planet in your chart, which I can do for you if you're interested through ordering one of my astrological services. And the link to my astrological services page is above. I won't run down the list. You can go there and check it out for yourself. In addition to that, I also do recommend that you subscribe to my YouTube page if you haven't done so already. I do regular updates to my YouTube page at least every other week, and sometimes there's a little bit more. There'll be an interview hopefully later on this month with another wonderful Vedic astrologer. We had a chat last month. I'm going to post that chat to my YouTube page, but in addition to that, I'm going to host a chat with him. So keep your eyes out for that as well. And in addition to that, there's obviously your monthly horoscopes that come out every month. So if you subscribe, you'll get notified whenever there's an update to this page, which takes place quite often. If you want to know the link to that chart calculator, it's a little bit below down where the description is on the page. You can find the link there. That's going to do it for your monthly horoscope for December, Gemini. I do wish you a very happy season and a very prosperous new year. Please do take very good care of yourself.